single mom sent a desperate message to the wrong man. Then a millionaire knocked on her door saying, "We need to talk about the kids. Jane, please. The girls are sick again. I can't miss another day of work. Can you cover for me?" Autumn Sinclair hit send before doubt could stop her. Her thumb hovered as she waited for the reply. Nothing. No. Dots. No response. She exhaled shakily and set the phone down on the kitchen counter. In the living room, Leah whimpered under a worn-out fleece blanket. Her twin sister, Ren, lay beside her, flushed and quiet, clinging to her tattered, stuffed bunny. Autumn dampened a cloth and pressed it gently to Leah's forehead. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here." Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it immediately, expecting Jane. But the message read, "This isn't Jane. But I think we need to talk about the kids." Autumn froze. The number was unfamiliar. Area code. Portland. Her stomach dropped. She quickly replied, "I'm sorry, wrong number." No. Answer came. Trying to push away the rising unease, she locked her phone and turned her attention back to the girls. But the tension lingered. Something about that message wouldn't let her go. 12 miles away, Landon Carter stood by his window, staring at the text. The girls are sick again. Leah and Ren. He knew those names. 2 years ago, he'd quietly followed up on an anonymous sperm donation he'd made, driven by curiosity and a strange lingering pull. There had been one confirmed success, a single mother named Autumn Sinclair. Twins. Girls. He had respected the legal and emotional boundaries. Until now. The message was clearly a mistake, but it had been sent to his private number, one known by only 4 people. Coincidence? Maybe, but it felt like something more. He hadn't planned to act, but now he couldn't shake the feeling that fate had just opened a door. He picked up the phone and made a call. The next morning, a knock came just as Autumn finished rinsing a baby bottle in the sink. She glanced at the time, 8:07 a.m. No one was supposed to be here. Ren stirred. Leah coughed. Autumn walked to the door and looked through the peephole. A man stood outside in a dark wool coat, tall and still, holding only a phone and a folded slip of paper. She opened the door just a crack. "Yes." He looked up. "I'm sorry to show up unannounced," he said gently. "But we need to talk about the girls." Her chest tightened. She moved to close the door, but his hand lightly stopped it. Firm, not threatening. "My name is Landon Carter. I believe I received your message yesterday by mistake." Autumn stared, her throat dry. "You're that number." He nodded. "I am. And I believe Leo and Run might be my biological daughters." Silence fell. "What did you just say?" She whispered. "I donated to a fertility clinic 3 years ago," he explained. "I never planned to meet the children, but when your message came to me, I couldn't ignore it. I've known about you, about the twins. I kept my distance." Her eyes narrowed. "How do you know their names?" "I hired someone legally to confirm the outcome of my donation. The names were mentioned. That's all. I swear I haven't interfered." From inside, one of the girls coughed again. Landon flinched. Slightly, not from surprise, but concern. Autumn turned toward the sound, then looked back at him. "You need to leave." "I will," he said softly, reaching into his coat. "But please take this." He held out a sealed envelope. "I wrote it last night. Everything I want to say is in there. If you never want to see me again after reading it, I'll disappear. No questions. But please just read it." She hesitated. Then she took the envelope and slowly closed the door. Outside, Landon stood for a long moment, staring at the wood grain as if listening for something. Inside, Autumn leaned against the door, the envelope clutched in her hands, her heart pounding. The world had just shifted, and nothing would ever be the same. Autumn stood by the kitchen counter, gripping the sealed envelope like it might burn her. Landon Carter was gone, but his presence lingered. She opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a single, handwritten page. If I'm wrong, I'll walk away, but if I'm right, if Leia and Run are from the donation I made 3 years ago. I never expected this. I never planned to be involved, but I can't ignore this now. I only want what's best for them and for you. If you'll talk, I'll listen. I'm not here to claim anything, just to understand. Landon. Autumn's eyes filled. She dropped the letter and rushed to the girls. Rin was asleep, bunny in hand. Leia hummed softly, cheeks still pink, but breathing easier. Autumn kissed both foreheads and collapsed into a chair, heart pounding. What was happening to her life? 2 hours later, she opened the door. Landon was still there, parked outside, seated in a black sedan. As soon as she stepped out, he looked up. You know their names, she said. You know too much. He stepped from the car. May I come in? She hesitated, then nodded. Inside she poured 2 glasses of water, hands shaking. I thought you were a scammer, she said, sliding one to him. Someone who found out I used a donor and thought, easy target. I would have thought the same, he admitted. But I heard their names, and they matched the records I accessed 3 years ago. I never intended to follow up, but something told me I should at least know. She eyed him carefully. What records? I legally requested updates from the clinic. Just basic stats, no names or contact info. I knew there had been a birth, twins, no partner listed. Then you texted me, and I couldn't ignore it. He reached into his coat and handed her a folder. This confirms my donation was used for a successful IVF in December 2 years ago. Same clinic, same timing. She opened it. Dates, donor number, clinic stamp, it all matched. I was 175B, he said softly. I didn't expect anything beyond that. But when I got a medical update request last year, I asked if a birth had occurred. Tears stung her eyes. I picked that profile because it said the donor liked classical music, volunteered with kids, she whispered. I wanted kindness in their blood. Silence. Then she broke. I didn't plan to be alone. I didn't plan to be broke. Landon said nothing, letting her speak. I was with someone for 6 years. We were going to get married. Then he left. Said he didn't want kids. A month later, I was told I had low ovarian reserve. 1 year, maybe less, if I ever wanted children. She looked away. I thought I'd meet someone else. But time passed, and I just couldn't wait. I wanted to be a mom. Landon's voice was low. That's not something to apologize for. I wasn't giving up on love. I just chose the kind that couldn't leave. She swallowed. Then, my father's company collapsed. Fraud scandal. Everything gone. Money. Reputation. I lost my job. Headlines everywhere. Sinclair Eyes pregnant and alone. No one would hire me. I left the city. I've been raising them myself. Since gig work, temp jobs, just surviving. Landon gripped his glass tighter. I didn't know any of that. Why would you? She said, bitterness in her voice. You were just the DNA. He met her eyes. You and I both know it's more than that now. Autumn's breath caught. She hated how much she wanted to believe him, but belief felt dangerous. I didn't bring you into this, she whispered. Don't pretend you're part of it now. Landon stood calm and steady. No, he said. You didn't bring me into this. He glanced toward the hallway where faint giggles drifted in from the living room. They did. The next morning, Autumn opened the door to find Landon already waiting, parked at the curb in a sleek black SUV. He stepped out when he saw her, not with the entitlement of a man who expected to be let in, but with the calm, respectful patience of someone who knew he was walking a tightrope. I found a pediatric clinic, he said. Private, no press, no questions, just a checkup, no cost. Autumn crossed her arms. I told you I don't need help. I know, Landon said. This isn't help. It's information. She frowned. You said the girls have been sick a lot lately. If something's going on, don't you want to know why? The phrasing caught her off guard. Not let me help, but don't you want to know? It was subtle, but she noticed. They would never know who she was really meeting. Not just the girls. Landon nodded without flinching. Leela and Run. I know. Oh, of course he did. And something in the way he said it made her heart hesitate. The clinic sat tucked between tall trees on the quiet side of town, far from hospitals and headlines. Inside, the waiting room was softly lit, painted in watercolor blues and warm greens. There were no cold metal chairs, just bean bags and stuffed animals, and a wall of children's books. Autumn sat, with a girl on each knee, Leia in pink leggings, Rin in a dinosaur hoodie that barely zipped over her tiny frame. Landon sat across from them, silent, hands folded in his lap. When the nurse stepped in, she smiled warmly. LLA and Ren. Both girls looked up, startled. Autumn blinked. You knew their names. The nurse smiled again. Of course, Mr. Carter provided their records in advance. Nothing invasive, just vaccination history, recent illnesses. He said it was important we treat them like individuals, not just patients. Autumn didn't speak. She looked at Landon. He didn't say a word, just met her eyes. She felt the floor shift under her again. Not because he had arranged the appointment, not because he had paid for it, but because he had told a stranger, treat them like people, like her people. The exam was gentle, thorough. Leia sang softly while the doctor checked her throat. Rin pointed to a framed photo of a bunny on the wall and told the nurse that her own bunny sometimes gets tummy aches, too. By the end of it, the doctor turned to Autumn and said, they're fine. Maybe a little run down, but strong girls, very bonded. Do you have support at home? Autumn paused, then nodded. I'm figuring it out. Landon said nothing. He just stood by the door, silent like a sentry. On the way back, Autumn sat in the back seat with the girls. They had both fallen asleep against her shoulders, the soft rhythm of the car lulling them into peace. She glanced at Landon's reflection in the rear-view mirror. He wasn't watching her. He wasn't waiting for thanks. He was just driving. She didn't say anything, but something in her chest loosened. That night, just as she was locking up, Autumn noticed something outside her door. A brown paper bag. No note, no name, just a soft bundle tucked neatly beside the mat. Inside were a few things. A small stack of educational toys, soft blocks, a memory game, a pop-up book about animals, a canister of formula with a brand she could never afford, a tiny pair of fuzzy slippers, still tagged, one pink, one blue. She stood in the doorway for a long time. Then she sat on the floor beside it and cried. It wasn't the money. It wasn't even the toys. It was the way the slippers were different colors. The way someone had thought about both of them. The word the bag had. No name, no demand. He wasn't claiming space. He wasn't asking to be let in. He was simply offering. No conditions, no pressure, just presence. Autumn brought the bag inside and placed it quietly by the crib. Leia stirred. Rin rolled over in her sleep. She stood there watching them, two tiny people she had sworn to protect with everything she had. And for the first time in 2 years, she didn't feel entirely alone. The man was still a stranger. But what he had done, it wasn't grand. It wasn't flashy. It was just kind. And in her world of scraped knees and unpaid bills and stretching every dollar, kindness felt like a miracle. The rain came down softly outside the window as Autumn dried Leia's curls with a towel, humming the same lullaby she'd sung every night since the girls were born. Across the small living room, Rin giggled on the couch as Landon held a picture book, upside down, and dramatically misread every word. "That's not a cow," she shrieked, pointing at the page with wide eyes. "It isn't," Landon feigned surprise. "But it's white and has spots. It's a Dalmatian." Rin laughed so hard she fell backward into the cushions. Autumn watched them quietly, her arms around Leia. It had been 2 weeks since that first unexpected message. 2 weeks of cautious steps and thoughtful gestures. Landon had shown up, not every day, but often, always, with a reason. A book he thought Leia might love, a snack Rin had mentioned once, a calm, grounding presence that didn't ask for anything in return. He never stayed long, just enough to build trust, especially with the girls, and maybe slowly with her. One morning, Autumn found him sitting cross-legged on the floor with the twins, trying to learn how to fold origami cranes from a video Rin had requested. His large hands fumbled with the delicate paper, but he didn't give up. LLA patted his shoulder and said, "You'll get it, Mr. Landon." And he smiled like that meant everything. Another afternoon, he asked if he could take them all to the park just for an hour. Autumn almost said no, but something in her softened. He had never once overstepped, never once pushed. That hour turned into an afternoon. They watched the ducks together. Autumn sitting on the blanket beside him, the girls tossing bread into the pond. Rin slipped and landed in the mud, and Landon didn't hesitate. He scooped her up, mud and all, and made a silly voice about being the mud queen of Portland. Autumn laughed, surprised by the sound of it. The girls were safe, happy, and for the first time in a long while so was she. The visits continued. Grocery runs became less of a chore when he was around to help carry bags or distract the girls with a game of who can spot more cereal boxes. Sometimes he'd stay for dinner, not always, but often enough that the girls began to ask if Mr. Landon would be joining. Then came the invitation. "I'd like to cook for you," he said one evening after helping them clean up spilled apple juice for the third time that week. "Just you and the girls. Nothing formal, just dinner." Autumn hesitated. She looked at him carefully, searching for any sign of expectation, but all she found was sincerity. "Okay," she said. Dinner. His house wasn't as grand as she'd imagined a tech Millionaire's would be. It was tasteful, clean, filled with books and soft lighting. There was a piano in the corner, and the girls gravitated toward it instantly. He cooked pasta from scratch with real tomatoes and basil picked from a planter on his balcony. He let the girls help stir the sauce while he wore an apron that said, "Yes, chef." After dinner, Leia asked if he could play something on the piano. He hesitated, then sat down and played a soft tune, something jazzy and full of warmth. Autumn stood in the kitchen, loading dishes into the sink as the girls danced. She didn't even realize he had joined her until he reached for the sponge beside her hand. Their fingers touched. She froze. It was a small thing, barely a second, but his hand didn't jerk away. It simply rested there, solid and warm, gentle. Her breath caught. She turned slightly, and their eyes met. The music continued in the background, and in that moment, everything else fell away. "I didn't mean to," he started. "It's okay," she said quickly. Too quickly. She pulled her hand back and focused on the dishes, scrubbing harder than necessary. Her heart thudded in her chest, loud and undeniable. For months, no, years, she had trained herself not to feel, not to need, not to trust. But now, something was shifting. He dried the plates beside her in silence, giving her space. Later, when the girls were buckled into their car seats, sleepily clutching their stuffed animals, Autumn turned to him on the porch. "They may have a good time," she said. "I'm glad," Landon replied. His voice was low, not trying to fill the silence, just existing in it. Autumn looked at him then, not at the millionaire, not the man who'd offered quiet help, but the one who now knew how Run liked her toast, cut diagonally, and how Leia needed 2 lullabies before bed. "Thank you," she said. He didn't say, "You're welcome." He just nodded and watched as she carried the girls inside. But that night when she finally climbed into bed, her hand still tingled where he touched it. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Autumn didn't feel like she was standing alone. Autumn sat cross-legged on the living room floor long after the girls had fallen asleep. The soft hum of the baby monitor filled the silence. Her body ached, but her mind was awake, buzzing with moments she didn't want to forget. She reached for her sketchbook, the one untouched for months. It still smelled faintly of charcoal. Flipping past half-finished sketches, she stopped at a blank page and began to draw. From memory, Landon crouched in the park listening to Ren explain why ducks were basically dinosaurs. The way his face softened as Leia sang her off-key ABCs. The warmth in his eyes, genuine, steady, present. She drew carefully. No idealizing, just truth. A man who never once looked at his phone, who never asked for thanks, who simply showed up. When she finished, her fingers ached, but the image was clear. Landon cross-legged on the grass, Ren leaning into his side, Leia Midong, a wild flower in her hand. His hands rested calmly on his knees, eyes crinkled with laughter. She stared at the drawing before closing the sketchbook. Days passed quietly. Landon didn't visit, but texted every morning. Action of society. Did you sleep even a little? Rin says the duck is her new best friend. Don't forget you're doing better than you think. She only replied with simple thank yous, but each message stitched something broken inside her. She hadn't realized how lonely her mornings had been until someone remembered to ask. That Friday he stopped by. "I was near the market," he said, handing her a small bag. Ren said she missed that awful green juice. Autumn chuckled. "It tastes like grass clippings. Few loves it anyway." He stayed just a bit, long enough for Leia's high five and Ren to cover his arm in butterfly stickers. Then he noticed something beneath the couch. "Is this yours?" he asked, pulling out a sketchbook. She froze. Before she could respond, it slipped open. To that page, the one she'd drawn of him. For a long beat, he said nothing. Autumn braced for awkwardness, for the kind of tension that usually came with vulnerability, but when he looked up, his voice was soft. "No one's ever seen me like this." She cleared her throat. "It's not finished. It's real," he said, eyes on the page. "That's what it is." He gently touched the edge of the drawing, careful not to smudge it. "I've been in magazines, on stages, suits, and speeches, but no one ever captured me. Just listening. You were easy to draw," Autumn said quietly. "You were still." He looked at her. Really looked. "Do you know how rare that is, to be seen like that?" Heat rose to her cheeks, but she didn't look away. Landon closed the sketchbook gently and handed it back. "Thank you. It wasn't a gift," she said. "It is now." She had no words, so she said nothing. The moment hovered between them, not awkward, but delicate, like something precious and new. That night, after the girls were tucked in and dishes done, Autumn reopened her sketchbook. She ran her thumb over the lines, his jaw, Leia's hand curled into his sleeve, the flower in Ren's fingers. She thought of what he'd said. "No one's ever seen me Like this. And that's what scared her, because maybe she was beginning to see him, not as the stranger from her wrong number, not the donor, not the man with money or perfect timing, but someone who could exist within her chaos and not flinch. Someone who didn't need rescuing and didn't expect to rescue her either. Someone who showed up and made the space beside her feel less like a ledge and more like solid ground. The comment wasn't meant for her to hear, but Autumn did. She was at the co-op grocery store near her old neighborhood, pushing the double stroller while Leia hummed some made-up tune and Rin clutched a plush fox. It had been a good day, a simple one. The girls were smiling, the weather crisp, but not cruel. For a moment, things felt normal, and then the words cut through like cold wind. Man, you think it's coincidence? She sends a text to a millionaire, and now he's at her house every week. 2 women stood by the organic apples. One of them, Miranda, was someone Autumn had once shared drinks and startup gossip within. Another life before things fell apart. I heard she used a donor, the second woman added. Now she's trying to lock him in by making it look like fate. Classic Cinderella scam. 2 kids and a sad story. He won't know what hit him. Autumn's hands clenched around the stroller handle. She could have walked away. She almost did, but Leia turned to her and whispered, "Mommy, your eyes look mad." And that stopped her cold. Because the last thing she wanted her daughters to see was her letting someone else's cruelty define the way she held herself in the world. She didn't say a word to the women, just gave them a look, calm, steady, deliberate, and turned the stroller toward checkout. But inside, the words dug deep. That night, as the girls napped after lunch, Autumn sat on the couch with her phone in her hand, staring at Landon's latest message. Made any more dinosaur friends today? She typed back, then deleted it. He typed again, deleted again. She didn't want to sound like she was fishing for reassurance, but she was hurting. And Landon noticed when he stopped by that evening with soup and a new storybook about penguins. He caught on quickly. "What happened?" he asked. Gently. She hesitated, then finally told him. The words were ugly, but she repeated them anyway. "I know I shouldn't care," she said, voice tight. "But part of me does. I worked so hard to survive, and now it's like I have to justify every bit of kindness you give me. Like I'm scheming." Landon didn't react right away. He didn't rush to anger or try to offer some hollow comfort. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and handed her a card. It was an invitation. Celebrate. Single Mothers, an evening of resilience, reflection, and community sponsored by Carter Foundation. "I've been meaning to ask if you'd come," he said. "You don't have to say anything. Just be there." Autumn blinked at it. "You're sponsoring this." "I started it last year," he said simply. "It matters to me, and I think if you were willing, your story could mean something to a lot of people." She stared at the card. Her instinct was to say no. She hated public speaking. She hated being seen as a case. But then she thought about what those women had said, and about how many other women might feel just like she had. That morning, humiliated, unseen, judged. She looked up. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll do it." The auditorium was packed. Rows of chairs, fairy lights strung overhead, and soft music playing. There were women with babies in slings, toddlers in mismatched socks, teenagers standing beside mothers who looked too young to have raised them alone. There were tears, laughter, and stories being shared over donated wine and cheap hors. And then it was Autumn's turn. Her palms were sweaty, her knees locked. But when she stepped up to the mic and saw Landon in the front row looking at her, not with pity or pressure, but quiet support, she found her voice. "I never planned to be a single mother," she began. "But life has a way of tearing up plans and handing you a paintbrush instead. A few soft laughs. She told them about her diagnosis, about the heartbreak of the relationship she thought would end in marriage, about choosing to become a mom. Not because she gave up on love, but because she believed in the kind that never left. I was 4 months pregnant when my family lost everything. I went from managing million-dollar campaigns to clipping coupons and counting quarters in line at the pharmacy. And yet I've never regretted becoming a mother. Not once. The room was silent. Tears streamed down faces she didn't know. She wasn't telling them anything extraordinary, just the truth. The messy, hopeful, defiant truth. She closed her speech with one simple line. Being a mom didn't break me. It rebuilt me. For a moment, no one moved. Then, Landon stood up and he clapped loud, clear first. The sound echoed across the room like a rising tide. One by one, others joined. Soon the whole auditorium was on its feet. Autumn met his eyes across the sea of faces. He didn't mouth anything. He didn't need to. It was all there in the look. Recognition, respect, something deeper, not just for the mother she had become, but for the woman she always was. 6 months later, the house was still. A little too small, and the backyard a little too wild. But Autumn wouldn't have changed a single thing. They had moved in mid-spring, a modest craftsman cottage with faded blue shutters and a creaky porch swing that Landon swore he would fix, but never did. The garden out back was messy and overgrown, full of potential and dandelions, just like their lives. Wren was curled up under the rose bush that afternoon, whispering to the neighbor's tabby cat and insisting she was learning to speak cat. Leia was at the picnic table, covered in finger paint, drawing a rainbow with shoes. Because rainbows walk to the sky, she explained. Inside, Landon was in his home office, sleeves rolled up deep in a video call with a pediatric research team. He worked from home, now 3 days a week, and never missed dinner. Autumn stood by the window, watching all of it with quiet wonder. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't perfect, but it was home. Her online art shop was doing better than she'd hoped. Not wildly successful, but steady. Every few days, a new order would come in for a hand-drawn family portrait, a nursery mural sketch, or her favorite, custom memory collages made from people's stories. But today she wasn't drawing for clients. Today, she was drawing for herself. In her lap was a new sketchbook. On the page, she was working on a piece she had only imagined before. It showed 4 figures in a garden. Leia chasing a butterfly, Wren petting a cat, Landon reading on a blanket, and Autumn laughing with her head tilted back barefoot in the grass. No masks, no worry lines. Just joy. That night, under soft golden light strung across the backyard fence, they ate dinner on a blanket with plastic plates and too many napkins. Leia told a long, winding story about how worms were actually secret superheroes. Wren meowed. Her agreement. Autumn leaned back against Landon's shoulder, sipping warm cider as the girls played nearby. Do you remember? She said softly. That night I sent you that text by accident. He smiled hard to forget. I was so scared, she admitted. Not just about the girls being sick, but about everything. I thought I had ruined our lives. You saved them, he said. She shook her head. I thought being a single mom would mean giving up on love, that I was choosing one thing forever, that you couldn't have both. He turned to her, eyes steady, and now she exhaled. Now I know I wasn't giving up on love. I was trusting the first kind of love I ever felt. The strongest one, the love between a mother and her children. It gave me everything. Even you. Landon reached out, his fingers gently threading through hers. You know what I think? He said. She tilted her head toward him. I think love was never about choosing one thing over another. I think love is the thing that chooses us when we're finally ready for it. She blinked against the warmth in her chest. That's cheesy. He grinned. But true. Autumn rested her head against him, listening to the girls' laughter echo into the night. This wasn't how she had pictured her life 5 years ago. It was better because everything they had. Now, every hard-won smile, every quiet night, every soft word they had earned. With courage, with grace, with hearts that refused to stay closed forever. She looked at him, this man who had once been a stranger with a business card, now brushing spaghetti sauce from Ren's cheek without flinching. He'd killed men and women, he claimed. But she thought, he did it for the better men and women who had not. He had never asked to be a father, but he had chosen to stay. And that choice had made all the difference. I love you, she whispered. Landon smiled. Good, because this is just the beginning. And as the light swayed above them, and two small girls argued over who got the last piece of garlic bread, Autumn felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. Oh, not everyone born a father learns how to love like one. And not every woman who carries a child becomes a mother in the truest sense. But when two hearts that have known pain find the courage to stay open, family is no longer something you build. It's something that finds you. And sometimes it all begins with the wrong text. Message sent at the exact right time. Sometimes the wrong number leads to the right story. Sometimes love doesn't knock. It sends a text that changes everything. If Autumn and Landon's journey moved something in you, if it reminded you that family can be chosen, that love can arrive when we least expect, then don't keep that feeling to yourself. Tap the hype button to show your love. Share this story with someone who needs to believe in second chances. And subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more tales that don't just entertain, but remind us of what matters most. Until next time, keep your heart open because the next message you receive just might change your life.